Before Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, or Sandra Bland, there was Oscar Grant. The current movement against police terror and for accountability and justice can trace its first iterations to this moment, when Oscar Grant was killed by a Bay Area Rapid Transit police officer on January 1st, 2009. Captured on numerous digital devices, Oscar's death would be the first murder prosecution of an on-duty Bay Area police officer. Before that would occur, however, Oscar would be murdered in the media and in the court system. It was a triple murder. No doubt, the murders of Oscar Grant tells this story.
"'Tis woman's strongest vindication for speaking that the world needs to hear her voice." Anna Julia Cooper wrote those words in 1892. You would think she's speaking about today. White supremacy and patriarchy, by definition, belittles and ignores the voices of Black women. Some of us are brave. A Black woman. "'Tis woman's strongest vindication for speaking that the world needs to hear her voice." Anna Julia Cooper wrote those words in 1892. You would think she's speaking about today. White supremacy and patriarchy, by definition, belittles and ignores the voices of Black women. Some of us are brave. A Black woman's radio program was a corrective to that, centering and airing the voices, views, and experiences of Black women, documenting them and capturing moments in time. The program aired on Pacifica Radio for almost a decade. Many of those voices have been preserved here, and Some of Us Are Brave, interviews and conversations with sisters on life, art, and struggle. Edited by Thandisizwe Chimurenga.
Y'all, whoo! Let me start by greeting. How y'all doing? It's been so long since I have gotten up here on a Monday like I said I was going to do. I hope y'all are doing well on this holiday. Rest from your labors. We're not celebrating no imperialist armies. We're celebrating a day off from work. I hope y'all are doing well. When I tell you, you would not believe the technical difficulties that I have had today. Just trust me, it was rough. Be that as it may, I am here now. I think everything is working. I don't even know. But I hope y'all are doing well. I appreciate y'all for showing up. Thank you so much. I'm not going to say apologies because I need to stop apologizing and just get it right. I'm going to get it right eventually. But at any rate, I am here live right now. But Sikivu Hutchinson is not here live. This is a pre-recorded interview I did with Sikivu. So unfortunately, y'all won't be able to ask her any questions during the show. But if anything you got burning, you know, she's going to put her contact information out there. Of course, I can holler at her for you. She's accessible. You'll be able to holler at her if you got any burning questions. Oh, Ms. Thank you for calling me Ms. Appreciate that. Hello, how are you? Hey, Leah. Hey, Soul Mecca. Woo, peace and love. I sure need it. Thank you so much. Uh, you good? You all right? Yeah, don't ask. I don't even know what happened to the. Don't even ask. Don't even ask. But yeah, hit the like button. Hook a sister up. Hook a sister up right now, before something else happens. Oh my God. So anyway, it's been so long. Even missed we haven't even been on the remix in a minute. So let me see if I remember everything correctly. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Like the video now. Share the link to the video. Subscribe to Black Liberation Media if you're not already subscribed. Subscribe to my personal channel, Rootwork. Sister Nita, get her numbers up. Please and thank you. So yeah. Okay, truck. I'm not sure what that means, but it's a thumbs up, so it's all good. Brown thumbs up is always all good with me. Yeah, we need to call that guy unnatural. Don't disrespect nature, Mother Nature in that way. Exactly. But he called himself Nature Boy, and that's what we know him as. That's what y'all know. Most folks know him as, and that's, why am I explaining this to you? You know how we get out. All right, so look, I have not seen the multi-part YouTube series, Hood Horrors. Folks was telling me about it. I was like, I don't think I want to see that. I don't think I need to see that. Remember, a lot of us, and yeah, I know. I'm in a hurry. I'm frazzled because of the technical difficulties. What I should have said was, today's show, we're talking about the Hulu documentary on Nature Boy with Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson. That's what I should have said. Okay, back to the thing. People told me about this however many part Hood Horrors. I didn't want to go into that. They told me about the Hulu documentary too. I really didn't want to see it, because you have to remember, some of us remember when this was happening in real time. 10 years ago when he started, 10 years ago seems like a long time, and I guess it is a long time, but yeah, some of us been in these internet streets, unfortunately, at least 10 years. I know I've been here more than 10 years. So we remember when this cult and other cults like Black Hammer, dare I say the Not Fucking Around Coalition, these cults, a lot of them came to life on the internet. Some of these other cults had been around for decades before their people either escaped and went to the internet or before they found the internet, like Dr. York. At any rate, some of us remember when this was happening in real time, so we didn't necessarily need to see the Hulu documentary, but I got bored and I pressed play. And my understanding is the Hulu documentary is way tamer than Hood Horrors. So and even those of us who saw this unfold in real time, we never knew the intricate details. Now, for some of y'all who need intricate details, I believe Hood Horrors is what you want to watch. Yeah, I don't need all of that. But I know it was still, the Hulu documentary was still too much for me. And I'm like, why? I mean, it's 2026. They tell me it's the 21st century. Why are people still falling for cults? And I don't want to sound judgmental. I don't want to sound naive. I'm just trying to understand, why are we still falling for cults? It's the same reason we've always felt for cults. People want to join something. They want to be a part of something. They want to belong. And I think I had talked about ADOS and FBA, which are trash, by the way. The same thing, that every organization or grouping has its sincere believers who sincerely believe on the stated aims and goals, regardless of what the founders is doing, what they initially put out there as their goal. There are really honest, sincere, true believers in that. So unfortunately, there are also people out here, unscrupulous motherfuckers, who take advantage of that. Yeah, so at any rate, And before we get into this interview with Sikivu, how y'all like my book trailers? I'm starting to call them commercials. I probably shouldn't use that word, but these are book trailers for some books I've written, because I have a hard time promoting myself. I really feel that it borders on opportunism. So I try not to promote myself. I try to promote the work, but I'm at the age later for all that. Let me promote myself. So I don't know if y'all know, I have written some books. I tell people 5 books. I guess it's technically 4. Some of Us Are Brave is a 2-volume set, but no doubt The Murders of Oscar Grant, that was my very first book. Finally got a book trailer 12 years after I wrote the book. I could just now afford it, thanks to y'all donations here on Black Liberation Media. So Some of Us Are Brave, volumes 1 and 2, no doubt The Murders of Oscar Grant, working on a book trailer for my ebook on reparations. Matter of fact, you might need to get, it's called Reparations Not Yet. You might need to cop that, because I think it's free on Kindle, and I'm about to update it so that I can get a book trailer and make it into a pamphlet. But at any rate, and then we have What We Stood For. That's the book I co-authored with Deborah Jones, the woman who testified that Maulana Karenga was behind her and another woman's torture in 1970, the case that got him sent to prison for 4 years. That book trailer will be, I'll play that at the end, which reminds me, I'll play that at the end of the show. Us organization, that's another cult, but y'all don't want to talk about that right now. My point being, yeah, so in addition to the information I want to bring forth, see, as opposed to always begging you for hooking a sister up, like the ticker says with the Venmo and the Cash App, you could go out and buy a sister's books, which will eventually trickle down to me. Don't send me no money asking me to send you a book. I can't do all of that. I'm disabled. But be that as it may. No, the name of the book is Some of Us Are Brave. It's based on interviews I did in a radio show. I was a part of a group, and we named our show Some of Us Are Brave after But Some of Us Are Brave. We were trying to come up with a name for a Black women's radio show. So let me stop running my mouth. I'm already late as hell. Let me get into this video interview, this interview with Sikivu Hutchinson. Let y'all digest that, and I'll come back later on and we can check out the comments and the questions if there are many. All right, that good? Y'all all right? Let's go. Joining me now is Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson. Doctor as in actually has her degree, and you can look it up. She's the author of Humanists in the Hood, Unapologetically Black, Feminist, and Heretical, and the novel and play White Knights, Black Paradise, on Black women, People's Temple, and Jonestown. She is also the founder of the Women's Leadership Project, a Black feminist mentoring and advocacy program for Black girls, girls of color, and queer youth based in South Los Angeles. Her sex trafficking prevention education film short, Alpha Centauri, debuted this year, and she will be giving a book talk on Humanists in the Hood on May 31st at Lower Bookstore in Leimert Park, Los Angeles. Thank you so much, Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson, for being on the show today.
Good morning.
I almost said being on Some of Us Are Brave today.
Right.
This is Rootwork here on Black Liberation Media.
Yeah, we go back. So I totally understand.
Right. And you have been consistently doing this work, if not since that time, before that time. So again, thank you for your work. And I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I am going to attempt to share my screen, and let's see if we can talk about your most recent essay, which is on Medium and the Hollywood Progressive, based out here in Los Angeles. Let's see. I'll put the link in the show description for folks to check out at their leisure. But as of right now, right this second, we have most recent essay, Black Women Beware, To Catch a Predator. Carbon Nation's caricature of cultishness begs the question as to why people from all walks of life are still powerfully attracted to and seduced by cults. So as soon as I saw this, I had to call you up because I had been hesitating. My Facebook family was like, yeah, don't watch it. I got bored. I went and I pressed play. I needed to know. I didn't need to know. But at any rate.
Hood horrors, right?
Yeah. We're talking about the Hulu documentary, The Cult of Nature Boy.
Yes. So it is extremely disturbing, extremely deep. But what really compelled me to write this piece was my history researching the People's Temple in Jonestown. And
before you get into that,
yes,
let us remind our viewers what was the People's Temple of Jonestown.
Yes. So People's Temple was a Pentecostal church that was started in the 1950s in Indiana by a socialist Marxist aligned white pastor named Jim Jones, the infamous Jim Jones. And People's Temple was steeped in a social justice liberation ideology at that time. And it enticed scores and scores of African American parishioners and acolytes. These folks immigrated from Indiana in many instances and went with the temple to Redwood Valley, California in the late 1960s. And they eventually had their headquarters in San Francisco, and they even had an outpost here in LA. And to make a long story short, a long tragic story short, it culminated in what was at that point in time the largest murder-suicide in American history. And the majority of the victims were African American women, men, and children. And so what is little known is that People's Temple was, again, it was a predominantly African American movement. And these were multi-generational folks who were compelled to get involved with the church because of the socioeconomic and political turbulence of that era. So we're talking about the end of the Black Power movement. We're talking about the end of the Civil Rights movement. We're talking about the emergence of the second wave women's movement and the gay liberation movement. So you had this intersection of socio-political change and turbulence that informed masses of African American folks getting drawn into this movement. And so the connection that I make between People's Temple and Jonestown.
Okay, well, real quick, let's go back for a second. When you say the largest murder-suicide in the U.S. history, it took place in Jonestown, Guyana.
Right.
Or in a place in Guyana that was named Jonestown after the founder, Jim Jones.
Exactly.
So it did not occur here in the U.S., but it involved quote-unquote U.S. citizens.
Right, yeah.
Another thing real quick, you're calling this a movement and not a church. Why is that?
Yes. So I dealt with a movement and others that were involved because a lot of my research involved talking to Black women survivors. Was the fact that, again, you had this extremely sociopolitically engaged church that was involved, for example, with the Black Panthers, was involved marginally, but still in terms of their rhetoric, with the Nation of Islam. They were implementing reentry programs for folks that were coming out of the system that had been addicted to drugs. They were implementing education programs, health programs, co-housing. They were involved in so many different socio-political campaigns and initiatives in the Bay Area when it came to prison rights, when it came to affirmative action, LGBTQ rights. So there were a whole host of things that the People's Temple was engaged in that distinguished them or distinguished that regime from your typical cult that is more steeped in spirituality and indoctrinating organized religion. Now, there is definitely the element, I mean, the big element, obviously, of quote unquote spiritual indoctrination with People's Temple, because again, they were a mishmash of Pentecostalism, socialism, collectivism, doing faith healings, and a whole range of other things that were highly dubious, you know, to lure in older generation African American folks and older generation white folks. But at the same time, they had this quasi-Black nationalist ethos that many African Americans across walks of life were resonating with. So that cannot be discounted. And so there is a through line between that dynamic and that theme with the People's Temple in Jonestown and what Elijah Bishop was attempting to do with his acolytes via melanation, carbonation, the Etherians, all these different iterations of the cult platform that he put into place. And so in the article, I talk about the draw that Black women were experiencing to this cult, and the fact that in my mind, it really resonated with what I had researched and what I discovered about the trajectory of People's Temple and Jonestown, because so many Black women during the People's Temple Jonestown era, again, primarily in the 1970s, early 70s into 1978, when the church and its members were again the victim of this massacre in Jonestown, Guyana, that so many Black women were compelled, were catalyzed into getting involved with this church movement and immigrating from the United States because of the depth of white supremacy and anti-Black racism and the violence that they were experiencing here, you know, the psychological and the physical and community violence that they were experiencing in San Francisco, in LA, and the other communities that the People's Temple Church were involved in. And so those were similar dynamics, catalysts that informed the young, primarily young African American folks who got involved with the Nature Boy carbonation cult, that they were tired of the anti-Blackness they were experiencing in their communities. They saw this young, charismatic, strong Black man proselytizing about the benefits of going back to the land and being steeped in nature and living this pure lifestyle away from the Babylon, quote unquote. That's what he dubbed the United States, the Babylon of the United States. And so he was framing this as a Black utopia, similar to the rhetoric and the propaganda that was being initiated by Jim Jones back in the 1970s.
Let me read this part real quick. Hence, it's noteworthy that People's Temple and Carbonation took Black women's labor as their raw material and primary source of capital. People's Temple was headed by the white sociopath Jim Jones, who utilized his twisted Black power minstrelsy to reel in and dupe multi-generational Black women disillusioned with California's Great Migration era promise of equal opportunity and release from Jim Crow terrorism. As Black Jonestown survivor and activist Leslie Wagner Wilson stressed in your 2016 interview with her, we were the backs upon which People's Temple existed and grew from. We were the majority of what made up People's Temple and, of course, Jonestown. We were no different than our ancestors who actually built the United States from free labor called chattel slavery. It goes on to talk about her memoir that came out. Let me skip down here real quick. In many respects, the young women who became ensnared in Carbonation are the spiritual descendants of all the People's Temple Black women who gave up their livelihoods to invest in what they believed would be an antidote to the racial disparities they were experiencing in the U.S. As one of the most faith-based groups in the nation, Black women have historically relied upon and utilized organized religion for community, self, identity, and cultural capital, but at what cost?
Yeah, like I said, it is deep, it's tragic, and we keep seeing these same patterns perpetuated ad nauseum to our detriment.
You also mentioned, I don't even know where to begin. We're talking about carbonation, melanation, the cult of nature boy with Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson. You talk about your research and the links between People's Temple of Jonestown, Guyana, and carbonation. In this article, your most recent article available on the Hollywood Progressive website, you also talk about the Ansaru Allah community, another cult which I am familiar with. I stumbled across them as a young woman at Howard University in Washington, D.C. back in the day, and they went through so many different things. I was able to observe them and look at their transformation, about how they went through so many, I almost lost count of how many different manifestations. But this essay, again on the Hollywood Progressive, it says, Black women beware. You're speaking, your work with young women and girls, femmes, queer youth, you talk about the links between this cult behavior and trafficking. Going back to before I just butted in, why does this keep happening?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Why are we falling? And it's not like one person is too many, but why do we see this repeating itself? So many, not thousands, but too many. Why are so many Black youth, Black people, Black women falling for this?
Yeah, I think
that is.
There are a number of factors. Clearly, we have just reached this extreme of racial capitalist adultification and exploitation of Black women and girls, and our bodies, our mental health and wellness, again, are prime commodities. And so is very little protective space that we have in this culture. And I draw the analogy between the grooming that one experiences in the cult idolatry and the grooming that one experiences in trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation, because Black women and girls comprise the largest group of those who are being trafficked. 40% of those nationwide who are being trafficked are Black women and girls. Over 90% of those who are picked up for trafficking in LA County are Black girls. Over 90% of youth that are incarcerated in juvenile detention for trafficking are Black youth. So we see once again this nexus: criminalization, policing, the adultification of Black girls, the misogynoir, the normalization of misogynoir that Black girls experience in all contexts, whether or not we are talking about schools, whether or not we're talking about the criminal injustice system, whether or not we are talking about the healthcare system, churches, even our own families. I mean, we could look at the degree to which Black girls, unfortunately, tragically, insanely, are being recruited into trafficking in many instances by family members out of desperation because of the burden of this racially capitalist economy that is being placed on our backs and our shoulders, where we have the least wealth of any group in this nation, where we have the highest rates of domestic violence related homicide, where by the time they're 18 years old, Black girls will, over 60% will have experienced some form of sexual abuse. And so all of these factors inform and undergird the resurgence of these Black nationalists, Black patriarchy-based cults that are luring Black women and girls in disproportionate numbers, and like I said, are parallel to the sex trafficking that we see in our communities that is absolutely tantamount to enslavement. Going all Middle Passage, different era, different economy, but the same dynamics, the same ideology informing it. And so in the article, I end the piece by trying to provide some way out for Black women and girls that might be enticed into these kinds of regimes of power, control, and domination, and sexual terrorism, okay? Because if sexual terrorism wasn't normalized within the dominant, sexual terrorism against Black women and girls wasn't normalized in the dominant culture, in white supremacist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy, we would not see the extreme seduction of these kinds of cults in our community. We would not see that. So they absolutely work hand in hand. And I want to say that, and this is not covered in the article, but you mentioned the YouTube series Hood Horrors. Hood Horrors goes into granular detail about the background of Elijah Bishop and talks about that he's the founder of the Nature Boy cult, melanation, carbonation. And they talk about him coming from foster care. Right. And having this horrific background of neglect, being involved in the juvenile injustice system, having to work as a sex worker. I mean, all of these things fueling the emergence of this cult of idolatry and personality and sexual abuse and terrorism of not just women and girls, but also men. And polygamy. I mean, all these things driven in part, because again, we're looking at this systemically, but in part because of his background of abuse and trauma as a young boy.
So, I don't know, the phrase elephant in the room keeps popping up. But before I get to that elephant in the room, I'm speaking with Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson, author of Humanists in the Hood, Unapologetically Black, Feminist, and Heretical, and the novel and play White Nights, Black Paradise, which is on Black women, the People's Temple, and Jonestown. She's the founder of the Women's Leadership Project, a Black feminist mentoring and advocacy program for Black girls, girls of color, and queer youth based here in South Los Angeles. She has a sex trafficking prevention education film short called Alpha Centauri, which debuted this year. And coming up at the end of the month, May 31st, she's going to be doing a book talk on Humanists in the Hood at Lower Bookstore here in Leimert Park in Los Angeles. Whew. Okay, like I said from the beginning, I don't even know where to start, but there were also quote unquote male victims of Elijah Bishop, just as there are always male victims of these cults. But the question I have to ask, and actually let me share my screen real quick because we can get into this. The question that I have to ask, you talk about this nexus, you talk about the normalization of, I'll just use the word brutality and violence against Black women, how it's normalized in this type of society, which means that, of course, something like this would happen. Howsoever, would you care to comment on the fact that the majority, overwhelming majority of cults, whether they be Black, white, or what have you, are headed by males, are headed by men? Is that something that we should take note of, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, the reason I ask that, this is Laura Kofi, who was a member of the UNIA back in the day. And it was said, I'll put the link in the show description, or in the chat at least. It was said that she had broken away from the UNIA and established her own quote unquote following. Some people label her as a cult. I don't know of any other Black women who may have established. I don't know of any other than Amy Semple McPherson, and that's based on TV. I haven't researched her. I don't know of any women, Black, white, or other, who have quote unquote established cults. But you started to say something. Go right ahead.
Yeah, the intersection of, let's just say, toxic masculinity and patriarchy in terms of the evolution of these cults is significant, because a lot of the fuel that these cults are thriving on is sexual abuse, control, and exploitation of women and girls. And so, I mean, we see this time and time again. I mean, it's almost like I said in the article, a caricatured playbook where women and girls are victim blamed, victim shamed, and gaslighted into believing that you are nothing, you are immoral, that you have no worth if you are not being validated and humanized by the cult leader, by the prime patriarch. Whatever the ideology is of the cult regime, it's always that you have some fundamental worth and beingness in the society, and ultimately leverage if you are close to the cult patriarch, if you are abiding by his rules, his laws, his directives. And ultimately, those rules, laws, and directives mean that you need to give up your body, that you need to provide sex, that you have to beat down other followers, either psychologically or physically, or a combination of both, that you have to be beholden to him to the nth power, and that nothing else matters. You have no subjectivity. Your family members are traitors. Your community members are suspect. All of the traditions that you cleave to prior to coming into the cult, you need to be disabused of, because they are not an authentic means of establishing selfhood, spirituality, and ultimately a path to redemption in heaven, or redemption, or whatever eternal reward that supreme being is promising you, is duping you into believing that you will not get if you do not bow down to him. And so that is what Bishop was doing with his acolytes.
If you do not fulfill my instant, tangible, material, physical gratification right here and right now, you ain't gonna get to heaven in the afterlife.
Right. That was what Jones was doing. That was what Bishop was doing. That, I'm quite sure, is what Dwight York and the Nubian Nation, you mentioned him earlier, was doing. All of them. I mean, and like I said, it's a playbook. And so we mean WOP, we're actually going to be doing some cult prevention education, okay, that is tied to our trafficking work.
Well, hold on. I'm gonna get to that, because you do mention some things that people can do in the article. So I'm gonna get to that in a moment. But real quick, I just want to ask. This is tiring. Throughout the Hulu documentary, it was carbonation, melanation was referred to as a sex cult, and sex is, of course, a part of many cults. I don't know if they're sex cults or just cults and there's sexual abuse going on. But the reason I say that is because haven't we also seen in many cults that are headed by men, the majority, if not all, Laura Kofi and Amy Semple McPherson, possibly. That's 2 out of how many million? Anyway, point being, these cults that are headed by men, certainly women have always been, quote unquote, the bounty or the booty, right? But don't we also see sexual humiliation and abuse of the men, the male?
Absolutely. Yes.
What is that about?
Well, I mean, it's about the same exercise of power, control, and domination. And that was definitely a big element of People's Temple in Jonestown, that Jim Jones was ritualistically abusing men, raping men, forcing men to do his bidding. So that was huge. And that also was alluded to in Carbonation. Now, I have not been able to delve into the 40 some odd episodes of Hood Horrors. So I don't know if that is documented, verifiable, but it was definitely alluded to in the Hulu documentary.
Right.
That he was definitely physically abusing his male followers, and there was some intimation of sexual abuse. And so that's simply to assert dominance, that you are dominant over quote unquote lesser males, something that I referenced in the article.
Right.
A whole heteropatriarchal domination of these other males, and again justifying your position as the supreme being, justifying extorting followers of their savings, of their income, of their benefits. It's a playbook.
So your article, which is your most recent article, Black Women Beware to Catch a Cult Predator, Carbonation's Caricature of Cultishness, begs the question as to why people from all walks of life are still powerfully attracted to and seduced by cults. This is on the most recent Hollywood Progressive website. You state, given that Black women and girls are especially vulnerable to religious cult indoctrination and trafficking, representing 40% of trafficking victims in the US, providing them with holistic tools for self-advocacy and self-determination is critical. Some of these protective strategies include being attuned to the warning signs of grooming and exploitation, staying in contact with trusted friends and community, engaging in humanistic mental health and wellness activities that don't rely upon the dominance of a focal leader, developing money management skills that prioritize one's own livelihood, and setting boundaries for charitable giving and personal space. You talked about, or well, we mentioned briefly, you've got a film on trafficking called Alpha Centauri, and the work that you've been doing with the Women's Leadership Project here in South LA. How can we work to prevent, to make an inroads, to make a dent in some of what we are seeing? And let me just say real quick, going back to the Hulu documentary, I know this is going to sound naive. I know it is. I can't help myself. I'm watching the documentary. I think I'm maybe 15 minutes, I'm not even 20 minutes in. And two of the former members, I believe, this one that we see right here on the screen, Velvet, known as Velvet, talked about the fact that they were in college. Yes, you're young, you're in college, but at the same time, I'm thinking you're college educated. Why are you falling for, excuse my English, this obvious bullshit? This is bullshit. So many of us who watched Carbonation unfold online, we were in real time, like, oh, this is some bullshit, and we would keep scrolling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Talk about some of those tools. I
was struck by that too. I was struck by the fact that Velvet was at Tuskegee University when she got reeled into this. And that was extremely disturbing. But what we also know, I mean, two things can be true here. Okay, this is an educated young woman, intelligent young woman, well-spoken young woman in an HBCU environment where she is supposed to be poured into and lifted up, but at the same time, there's some disillusionment there. There may be some self-esteem issues. We don't know what was happening with her background in terms of, was there a history, as with so many of us, of survival of abuse and trauma? And I would say that because so many Black women and girls, myself included, are coming from backgrounds of surviving and attempting to thrive after abuse and trauma, that it is easier for us to get lured into these toxic situations. And so in the article, I wanted to be very clear about specific and what I believe to be concrete strategies to prevent, to defend against this cycle that we keep finding ourselves in. Building up the sense of self-identity, the sense of agency, the sense of self-determination of Black girls at jump, starting at elementary school, starting at middle school, talking about Black feminist transformative justice, making young people aware about toxic intimate partner relationship patterns that stem from, again, heteronormativity, misogynoir, other forms of toxicity. What is gender? What is sexuality? What are the socio-historical precedents of Black women being perceived as Jezebels, being perceived as unrapeable? That dynamic, translating into a lot of the toxic rhetoric and propaganda that we hear, unfortunately, in mainstream hip hop and rap and social media and other genres of cultural production that are prevalent in our community. So these are all preventive educational measures that we implement within the Women's Leadership Project in our South LA high school curricula and initiatives.
I've been speaking with Dr. Sikivu Hutchinson, author of Humanists in the Hood, Unapologetically Black, Feminist and Heretical, the novel and play White Nights, Black Paradise, dealing with Black women, People's Temple in Jonestown. She's the founder of the Women's Leadership Project, Black feminist mentoring and advocacy program for Black girls, girls of color, and queer youth based here in South LA. Her sex trafficking prevention education film short, Alpha Centauri, debuted this year. And at the end of the month, here in Los Angeles, in Leimert Park, she'll be giving a book talk on Humanists in the Hood on May 31st at Lore Bookstore in Leimert Park, Los Angeles. Doctor, I want to stress that again because you did get your PhD. You did write a dissertation. We can look it up.
You can look it up. NYU.
New York University.
Right there.
For folks who want to, go ahead.
I wanted to say one thing about the film, Alpha Centauri, because we talked about Velvet and her being in college. The protagonist of that, it's a narrative film. The protagonist of that film is a 17-year-old foster care young woman, and she's college bound. She wants to be an aerospace engineer, and she falls victim to grooming and trafficking by a predator in the neighborhood, who's very flattering of her and appreciative of her intellect and is buying her thing. So the classic playbook of grooming is writ large in this film. But what I wanted to do differently in this film, instead of having at the end, in terms of a positive resolution, having a teacher or adult come in to save the day, she is able to navigate the situation and come to some critical consciousness about the situation because of her friendship with another Black young woman who's queer identified, who's a poet. And so they have that solidarity and affinity that enables her to get out of that situation, or at least come into some awareness of the situation.
So how are we able to view Alpha Centauri?
So the trailer is currently on my YouTube channel, and I have been submitting it to different festivals and whatnot. So it's not available yet, but it will be come next year.
Okay. And again, I'll put that information in the show description, etc. For folks who want to keep up with you and the work that you're doing with the Women's Leadership Project, how can they do that?
Okay, so the Women's Leadership Project website is womensleadershipla.org. And then my website is sikivuhutchinson.com.
SIKIVU Hutchinson.com. And you all are available on social media, Instagram, etc.
Right. Yeah. WLP project underscore, and then my Instagram handle is just my first name. I lucked out on that one.
Sikivu Hutchinson, always a pleasure. I say always like we've been in contact. We lost touch. We've been watching each other from afar, but we haven't actually sat down for an interview since the days of Some of Us Are Brave. But thank you for so graciously giving up your time to speak with us today. Appreciate you always.
You too.
Thank you again so much for being on Rootwork today.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. I see y'all without fail been getting busy over there in the chat. I don't know what y'all doing over there. I no longer try to keep up with y'all and what y'all be doing. But at any rate, yeah, so I don't, just like I said in the beginning, I don't know where to begin. But let me just at least say one thing. Any gender can be a cult leader. Nobody said anything about that or around that. I asked her opinions on why she thought the majority of them were men. No one ever said only women or whatever other gender could not be a cult leader. You know, y'all be doing unnecessary stuff for real. And because you name 2 other women cult leaders in this part of the 21st century, that's 4. Again, I'm still not even sure of Amy Semple McPherson. So my question was, why is it that the majority of them? Do we have cult leaders, female cult leaders? I'm not going to say throughout history because, of course, what are the numbers of female cult leaders? What are the different demographics? You know, y'all be so simple sometimes. I don't know. But at any rate, I don't even know. Should I even go through? I don't know. Should I even go through do the chats? I don't know. You know what? I'm not going to. I said I was going to put it in the show description. I think I will at some point. But for today, for right now, I put it in the chat. I put in the link to Sikivu's Hollywood Progressive article. I put in the link to an essay on Black Past about Laura Kofi. I put in the link to Sikivu's, I think it's the trailer to her film Alpha Centauri, which is on YouTube. I put in the link to the Women's Leadership Project, and I put in the link to Sikivu Hutchinson's personal website. And Sikivu and I, we go back a ways. We lost touch in the real world, but you know, we would see each other online, etc. But back in the days prior to COVID, etc., I would have her on when I was doing radio at Pacifica, KPFK, have her doing commentaries, have her as a guest, etc. And it took me a minute, and I found out, oh, you got your doctorate from NYU. So that banter that you saw us playing around with, that was just a jab at old girl whose name I'm not going to mention, who bills herself as a doctor but ain't got no doctorate, ain't got no transcripts, ain't got no dissertation, says she can't find her transcripts, can't nobody look up her dissertation because she ain't really got a doctorate. So that's what that whole discussion was about. But at any rate, yeah, Sikivu's book, White Knights, is going into depth about the People's Temple in Jonestown, Guyana. I might have her back on because I saw someone in the chat asking about it. I might have her back on to just talk about that history of the People's Temple, bringing it up to through the present with what happened. Well, with what happened in Guyana and the aftermath. Because as I saw in the chat, yeah, a lot of people don't know. Because we was like, well, first of all, what are you black people? What are you doing with this white dude? And at the time, you know, I'm born and raised in LA all my life. I had no idea what was happening in the Bay Area. The Bay Area has been a very, very multiracial, the cliche term, hotbed of radical activity, political activity for years. But the People's Temple did not start in the Bay Area. They started elsewhere back east and then moved to San Francisco. And my memory is shaky. I don't know if Jim Jones was the sole founder or was part of the leadership of the founding and then became the sole founder. But he had been there a long, long time. And yeah, you probably, if you're in San Francisco in the 60s and early 70s, you probably best have political rhetoric, politically sounding rhetoric, socialist, Marxist inclined or nationalist inclined rhetoric. Whether you, excuse me, sincerely believe in it or not. Yeah, but as we can see, what happened in Guyana, that had nothing to do with Marxism, Leninism, socialism, communism, or liberation. And as all of us who are here, who are old heads know, I know some of you youngins might not know, but that's all of us old heads. That's where the saying "drink the Kool-Aid" come from. Even though we found out that it wasn't actually Kool-Aid, but yeah, that's where it came from. Drinking the Kool-Aid, quote unquote, a mass suicide. 900, almost 1,000 people gone out of here. Majority of them black. Yeah, that was something else. That was something else. And I guess, I don't know. I guess you think we would have learned from that? I don't know. But there were and are and have been cults started the same time as Jim Jones that are still in operation. They haven't killed 900 black people yet, to our knowledge. Some of them are still operating in different iterations. Like I said, we don't want to have some of these conversations. But yeah, Black Hammer, the dude, Ghazi, is it Ghazi or Gaji? I don't forgot his name, his whole name. But at any rate, he joined the APSP, Uhuru movement, was quickly given a leadership position. We'll talk about that another day. Saw some things he didn't like, broke off and started the Black Hammer. And that was another cult some of us were able to watch develop in real time on the internet, because that's where Gaji, I want to say his name was Gaji Kojo, but I don't really remember. And I don't remember his name before Gaji. But the point being, that was another dude we saw, because he was basically an internet influencer or an internet celebrity, and became politicized and developed a cult following. So following them in real time, I think what they were doing was recruiting from homeless individuals, definitely in the Atlanta area. And then all of that transpired with them. The Not Fucking Around crew or coalition or whatever, I'm calling it a cult because the dude acted like he wanted to be the cult leader. I don't know if it actually was a cult. I think it got clipped before it had been around long enough to establish itself as a cult. But you could tell dude wanted the limelight. You could tell that. And it came along, I guess, what was the late 20 teens, maybe between 2015, 2019, I guess. But then again, when was Breonna Taylor? Because they showed up, they either spearheaded or showed up at a major demonstration for Breonna Taylor. And that was right around the time. Now, Breonna, I think Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd were all murdered in 2020. Somebody in the chat knows what's going on. I think that all happened in 2020. I try to rely on my memory to keep it strong. And so that would mean that they had been established before that major demonstration. It was either at that demonstration in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, or not long after, where the dude over the Not Fucking Around Coalition, NFAC, was arrested because, for those of you who remember, they like the whole black, not camouflage, just black military, black boots. I don't think they had berets, but these automatic weapons strapped around and all that tired ass shit. Anyway, they said that, and I don't even remember his name, dude pointed his weapon at some police officers, and my understanding is that's how he got locked up. That was an easy takedown. But like I said, I think it was because they hadn't even been established that long enough for the feds, the government, to come up with something creative to stop him on. And I think they were more interested in self-defense and black people defending themselves than they hadn't had a time. Other than that, self-defense, I don't even think they had enough time to develop a political ideology. They were nipped in the bud. The vision of black folks in all black with guns and combat boots. These people ain't gonna settle for that. That's going to be unsettling to them. So, but anyway, for whatever reason, y'all like stomping around in your big black boots. I don't get it, but okay, whatever. So, I usually like to go to the chat, highlight your questions, comments, etc. You're very welcome. But y'all was doing a lot today. I don't know if I can get all into that. At least one person. But what about when women do it? When women do it, it's not in the same numbers. What's your point? That women do it? Did I say women don't do it? See, this is what I mean by stupid shit, silly shit. Stop coming up in here with silly ass shit. Anyway, you're arguing a point that wasn't made. We live in a patriarchal society, so of course the men are gonna argue it. I don't even remember who that. Well, all right, fine, whatever. Witches have covens, which may be seen as cult-like. Do the covens rape people and take their money and make them drink poisoned drinks and kill 900 of them? I'm just asking. OnlyFans is a cult, but y'all ain't ready for that convo. This is a child-friendly environment. No, it ain't. Let me hush. It might be a cult. Trafficking and cults are a human problem. That's my only point. It's not a gender problem, according to my studies. Most of this shit, gender is a human problem. No, you don't see elephants acting this goddamn way, or ants, or cats, or dogs. Yeah, it's a human problem, just like gender is a human problem. And one half of y'all humans, anyway, whatever. I'm gonna leave that alone. Well, the thing about it though, that's the question we have off top. How you following this white man? Like, for example, I got issues with Christianity. I don't care if it's the African Methodist Episcopal Church. I got issues with Christianity. But if I'm going to be a Christian, I damn sure ain't going to be no Mormon. What the hell? I ain't going to follow no white man if I know it's a white man in the lead. Yes, we can look at Dr. York, Nature Boy, and some other brothers I ain't going to name today. Yes, black men can lead cults, have led cults. I'm just saying, what you doing? How y'all follow this white man? But all right, fine. All right. All right. Okay. What else? Because I was late as hell. I don't even remember what time. Did I start at 5:30? So I've been here an hour. Why, thank you, my sister. I have a doctorate in avoiding bullshit. I haven't written the dissertation yet, but it's coming. White supremacy is a death cult as well. But you don't think we ready for it? Well, no, yeah. It's a large segment of a population that ain't ready for it yet. It's a lot of uncle and auntie ruckuses out here. Might be too many. But I think more and more of us are having the conversation. And we need a critical mass. That's all I'm saying. We need a critical mass. I would love it if all black people saw white supremacy as a cult. It ain't happened yet. It ain't happened yet. Anyway. Powers Booth. I remember thinking, what the hell kind of name is that? Powers Booth. But that was the dude who starred as Jim Jones in the made-for-TV movie. To my knowledge, I don't know. Has there been another movie on Jonestown? And I don't even remember. That movie was made a long time ago. But just like Old Girl, thanks to you all in the chat, I didn't know about this House of Prey in Florida. But then again, I think it was during the pandemic 2020. There was a lot going on. I don't know how I missed that. And I definitely missed that Phoenix goddess woman. I can't get it all, y'all. I can't get it all. All I remember is G-A-D Z-I Gaji. I don't remember his name before he changed it. But Google Gaji Black Hammer, Atlanta, Georgia. They were raided. Somebody I think somebody was able to smuggle a cell phone, rented, living in a house in Atlanta, called 911, said, I'm being held against my will. Police came. There was a standoff. Somebody ends up dying. I don't know. People in the org say the police killed him. Somebody else say he took his own life. But the leader, the cult leader, ends up being arrested for, it's another word for kidnapping. When you hold somebody against false imprisonment and all this, that, and the other. And he was being held in DeKalb County Jail or Fulton County Jail. And then they started pushing back the trial date. I even saw one news article said that he was asking for assistance to transition, as in, physically transition. It was a mess. But what I had been reading in the beginning when I was trying to follow along, I think that they had been recruiting homeless black people or going to areas and, recruiting black folks who may have been homeless or houseless into the organization. So, whether you're homeless, just vulnerable populations, homelessness, abuse, maybe even substance abuse, alienation from being from society, alienation because of youth. Lots of reasons why people fall victim to cults, unfortunately. Lots of unfortunate reasons. And it's interesting because in that interview, talking to Sikivu about Velvet, who was at Tuskegee and dropped out to join Carbonation. One of the other dudes, whose name escaped me, he had been to he had either been to college, then the military. I think he had been to college, then the military. member of Carbon Nation. And one of the reasons why is because he said he missed that type of camaraderie. He was lost, and he wanted that type of fellowship, familyship. The other thing he did say, though, was that he thought the number, because I started to say Black Hammer, Nature Boy was getting so many hundreds of thousands of views on social media. He also, take note of that, he said he thought that translated into hundreds of thousands of people paying attention to what he was saying. And, you know, that's one of the things that we factor in. Look at how many people are with this. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe I should check this out. And so, yeah. Well, whiteness is absolutely a cult. Capitalism is a cult. Well, capitalism is a death cult, so yeah. Many other multicultural cults in the 1990s that ended in many deaths. Really? I was not familiar with them. Black Hammer was a white online leftist obsession for a minute. Oh, well, yeah, no. You can't, absolutely do not judge the black radical tradition by that piece of shit, because that's what they were. But anyway. The biggest cults are the Roman Catholic Church, the military industrial complex globally. White supremacy is the gateway cult. I didn't know the Black Hammer group was a cult. I watched in real time when all the stuff happened. Girl, how could you not tell they was a cult? Anytime, okay, here you go. Anytime you got the one person consistently taking up all this, we're living in the time of, you know, social media, instantaneous. Anytime you got one person taking up all the screen time and a bunch of people in line in formation behind them, that's usually a sign. And I say that in all sincerity, which could be why this other commenter mentioned about the military. You know, the military is hierarchical, top down. It is my way or the highway. There is no negotiation. Now, of course, they'll tell you that's because people's lives are at stake. We have to maintain order and discipline. If you can't do that, you can't be a part of the military. Okay, I'm not arguing against that. I'm not in the military. I don't know all that. That's not my life. That's not my ministry. But because I'm not in the army, because I'm not in the military, you're not going to give me an order. Maybe if I work at, you know, Burger King, or Starbucks, you can give me an order. You can give me your order. But no, you're ordered to stand down. Excuse me? You're ordered to not engage. Who ordered to not engage? Didn't we tell you not to do? No, you said don't do such and such. But no, So if you're in a political organization that's going around giving orders, I'm not talking about some other maybe clandestine formation. I'm talking about an above ground organization, and they run around here talking about we giving an order. No, you're not talking to me. I don't know who you're talking to. You ain't talking to me. Now, if you're in the Black Liberation Army, that's life or death. If it can't function without top-down hierarchical and orders being given, I say, I'm not in that for a reason. All right. You know what? Y'all know what dude shot himself? Oh, you talking about Black Hammer. Somebody got shot. I don't know who it was. Ooh. I didn't know until a few weeks ago that Sarah Assault was a cult, but I never heard about you heard about Black Hammer. You just don't remember. Ooh, dang! I never thought about Sarah as a cult. Yeah, that's a conversation I'm not ready to have. I'm gonna leave that one alone. Ooh, yeah. Well, Heaven's Gate, and you see, Heaven's Gate was a cult. They all committed suicide. What else? What else you want to talk about? Uh, you know, okay. Ah, how do I pronounce your name? I learned how to read phonetically. Bukayo Snaka? Bukayo? Bukayo. Bukayo Snaka. Bukayo Snaka. You got to help me out. You got to work with me. Yo, I fuck with this host for real, for real. Why, thank you. Hey, Leah, I love you too. But I was going to say, y'all like to keep going and going in the chat. I'm not going to be sitting up here with y'all for the rest of the night. Okay? Cynical. I remembered how to pronounce your name. Cynical. Not all witches are in covens. Shh. Telling too much damn business. OnlyFans is not a cult. Stop that. You can keep your subscriptions in. It's okay. Yeah, it's not. It's really not. Covens are generally non-hierarchical. You know what? Okay. Fraternities and sororities are their own versions of cults. I'm not going to argue against it. It's not for me to argue against. I did not pledge. I had the urge when I was at Howard, Mother Pearl, Alpha Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta. I had the urge, but I just couldn't do it. Sister was a Delta. Niece is a Delta. Got Deltas in my family. I wanted to do it, but I just couldn't do it. My consciousness was growing by leaps and bounds. I was there in the 90s. No, I wasn't. It was in the 80s when I was at Howard. But still, all of those wonderful lecturers I was coming into consciousness. Asa Hilliard, oh my God. Sheikh Anta Diop, Runoko Rashidi, Francis Welsing was still in DC. I was like, it just seemed to me to be a contradiction to join a Black Greek letter organization at that time. I just couldn't do it. I had the urge. I wanted to go for Delta, but I just couldn't do it at the time. My position on it has mellowed since then, but at the time, I just couldn't do it. Why am I bringing this up? I'm looking askance. Y'all like that word? I'm looking askance at these Christians who are denouncing their membership now in these organizations. Because, to me, it just looked like you left one cult for another. Whatever. Friend of mine, I don't think I know I didn't. I didn't finish it. Sister friend of mine told me, is it Netflix? Somewhere out there in the world is a documentary series called Going Clear about Scientology. I started it, I got bored, and I went on to something else. But L. Ron Hubbard, I'm not following no white man if I'm clear that you're a white man. I am not following you into my religion or way of life if I can help it. We are all sucked into capitalism. We can't help it. Many of us are trying to fight against it. Other than that, if I know you're a white man, I'm not following you nowhere. L. Ron Hubbard, fiction writer, I'm not following you into none of that stuff. What the hell is wrong with you? A cult requires a figurehead who's above reproach. Ain't no white man above reproach. But at any rate. I'm gonna start misspelling your name. See how you like it. All right, y'all are just come on now. Come on, just y'all. You know what? Y'all do this on your own time. Y'all do this on your own time. I'm not going through all these. I can't keep up with all these new comments. Oh my God. Jehovah Witnesses. That was the one. Not only the Mormons, oh, Jesus Christ, Mormons, Jehovah Witness, Scientology. I know some ex-Jehovah Witnesses who said that's a cult. Duh. I hope you wasn't waiting on them to tell you that was a cult. Knocking on my damn door every Saturday morning. Jehovah Witnesses, Scientology, and Mormons. I am not following you around the block if you're a white man. But at any rate, y'all can stay here if you want to. All this, what are you? Okay, I can't even keep up. You know what? I tell you what. I'm going to go ahead on and end the stream. But what's that they say? You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. Actually, you ain't got to get the hell up out of here. Y'all can stay here on YouTube on the Black Liberation Media channel and just chat yourselves away to your heart's content. It is currently it's going on 10 o'clock on the East Coast. 6:53 my time. Some of y'all got to go to bed and get up in the morning, right? Well, fine. Whatever. Y'all stay here and chat to your heart's content. All right? As for me and mine, I'm about to get up out of here. I'm about to get up out of here. I thank you for hanging with me, for waiting for me, because today was spicy, unlike no other, and it's still spicy because I got to do the outro. Lord have mercy, help me, Jesus. Help me, Jesus. Help me, Jesus. This is when I call on Jesus. Help me, Jesus. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being active in the chat. I put Sikivu's information in the chat. It's not in the show description yet. I'll put it there later on. Please click on the links now so you can save them. Please like the video. Please share the video. Tell somebody about it, y'all. Tell somebody about it. And if you feel so inclined, if you're not already subscribed to Black Liberation Media and to Rootwork, if you feel so inclined, drop some ducats, some dollars, some cheese, some cheddar, whatever. I ain't gonna ask you for no racks, no stacks. Drop a little something. The Cash App and the Venmo and the Patreon for Black Liberation Media are all scrolling beneath. Also, the books that I mentioned, trying to promote myself more. So, for the last time, finally, thank you so much for tuning in, working on being more consistent, even with the tech spicy issues. So don't forget to check for Remix Morning Show and all of the other shows here on Black Liberation Media. I will see you all again, God willing, next Monday morning, 8 a.m. for the Remix Morning Show. And again, at 5 p.m. for Rootwork. That's going to be a real good one. Is it Jesus, John Wayne, and White Fragile Masculinity? All right. So y'all take care. Stay safe out there. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Nothing in Deborah Jones's formative years could have prepared her for life in the US organization. Like many of her generation, she was Black and proud before the phrase became popular. She believed, and still believes, in the principles for which the organization stood. But her life took a horrific turn on Mother's Day 1970, leaving her in trauma and in silence. In this never-before-told account, Deborah Jones's inspiring story is told. What we stood for. The story of a revolutionary Black woman by Deborah Jones and Thandisizwe Chimurenga is the compelling and harrowing memoir of one woman's experiences in a leading Black Power organization.
Black Liberation Media is a collective of Black and African organizers, journalists, academics, and media personalities serving Black and African masses seeking to further grow in their understanding of themselves, their histories, and the African world through entertainment and news. Please continue to like, subscribe, and donate to the channel so we can further serve you and liberate our people. You can also go to blkliberationmedia.org, get some merchandise, and also become a Patreon member and a member from the YouTube. Please do what you can, share, and show your love as we will show ours for you. Black Liberation Media.